everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Women Serve Too. Today we have Erikka Durdle with us. Fun fact, her and I actually served together back at Ramstein, Germany, which she will talk about her military experience in a little bit. But Erikka is a fiction writer and educator. She is an Air Force veteran. She is currently a Navy government civilian now, following her active duty spouse, who I also served with, fun fact, wherever the Air Force sends him. So Erikka is a graduate of Southern New Hampshire's University Mountainview MFA and was the recipient of the program's Safford Book Prize for Best Fiction Thesis and the Lynn Safford Memorial Prize. She dabs in multitasking because she is a mom and burning homemade cookies. So Erikka, thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
All right. So like I kind of already mentioned, her and I have served together, or I have said that you and I have served together. So tell us a little bit about your military experience, why you joined, what made you decide to get out and follow your husband and do this amazing resume of writing.
This is crazy. I'm like having to remember dates and years. Well, I started my Air Force career as a cadet at the Air Force Academy. Like, how long ago was that? 2006. But after, I would call it a series of unfortunate events, I made the decision to leave and enlist in the Air Force. I enlisted in 2009, and I spent some time in Texas, like we all do, I guess, in our shared career field, Brittany. And then went to Germany, Ramstein. I had a chance to deploy with a team to Afghanistan for 6 months. That was one of the highlights of my career. It definitely felt like you were doing something when you were deployed. And then I came back, met my husband, whirlwind romance. We were engaged within like a month.
I remember when you guys first got together, like he was so secretive about it. And I was like, everyone like hinted, they're like, I think it's with her. I think it's with her. So I remember like it was almost like a romance novel. But anyway, continue.
I mean, it was our first, this could only happen in Germany, but our first date was in Paris and we got engaged in Barcelona. So yeah, it was like something out of a movie. Anyway, we had to get married really fast because he was going to officer training school. And I was enlisted, like we were both enlisted when we met. And so I went to Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. He went to OTS. So the first year of our marriage, we were apart, which is just like the military. And, I served at Langley and then ultimately decided that it was just a little weird being enlisted officer, married in a small career field. So he made more money. It made sense for me to get out. So I joined the reserves out of active duty and went to grad school at ODU, Old Dominion University in Norfolk and Norfolk, Virginia, and pursued education. And my decision to do that was just practical. Everybody said that education was a good field for military spouses because it moves well. And so I resisted it at first, but I found that I actually really liked being an educator. But yeah, I guess I'm like kind of going outside the bounds of your question.
Oh, no, it's great. Like going from military to educator. What have you done so far? I know we talked about a little bit earlier before this recording that you're getting your PhD.
Yeah.
So what's that journey like?
That journey is, I found that what I really like about education is, the challenge of creating like really creative lessons, thinking about instructional strategies that you can use within like a diverse learning environment. So students come to the classroom with all different kinds of needs and interests. And I think that it's a fun challenge as an educator to create a lesson, that appeals to everybody in the classroom, which it's hard to do that, but it's fun. And so what I want to study with my PhD is pedagogical considerations and issues surrounding the issue of teaching literature and translation to high school students in diversified settings. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm still kind of, refining my research interests, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. But anyway, I landed there because I really love literature and translation, which is something that was really kind of birthed out of my experience writing this novel and my MFA. And I just want to kind of back up and say the whole reason I got my MFA was because my students, when I was teaching, were sending me all their college essay applications or college essays for me to review. And they were all talking about all like chasing their dreams and, doing these amazing things with their life. And, I'd spent so much time in the military kind of following other people's visions for the world, I guess you could say. I don't know if you relate to that, but, you're not creating like, I don't know. It's not the most creative job being in the military, at least not in where we were. And then in education, the reason I went with that job was because it was practical. And so I was like, I'm going to do what my students are doing and chase something that's just for me and chase my dream. And that's why I got the MFA. And so this PhD is kind of like a marriage between my my MFA and my education degree. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, what is a MFA?
Oh, sorry. It's a Master of Fine Arts, and it's a terminal degree. So it's like, you can get a PhD in creative writing now, but it's recognized as a terminal degree in the field of creative writing. With it, I could, teach potentially at the university level, but yeah, or you could just take 10 years to write a novel, like I'm doing.
Yeah. What's your novel about?
Oh God. It's about a daughter and a mother. The mother's Korean and the daughter's half Korean. And it's kind of an exploration of the mother's life, but it's also, a story about these two kind of getting to know each other without speaking directly to each other, because there's a language barrier. There's also just a huge cultural barrier between them. And what I try to do is marry like Eastern and Western literary traditions together. So yeah, I won't bore your listeners too much with that, but it's a fun project for me. I like it.
That's amazing. Like I never really, I guess, considered like the Eastern like writing style and just like marrying that with like the Western. I know you're half Korean. Is it kind of based on your life, or you just kind of relate to the character?
Yeah, I think like when I started this project several years ago, it was more autobiographical than it is now. Now it is not at all. It's definitely, my characters have taken a life of their own. And now I would say that my main character and I share some of the same questions and frustrations, but not the same life. And the mother figure, she's not my mother at all, and not a reflection of my mother either. So yeah, it's evolved.
No, that's awesome. Do you feel like that could potentially like help, say, like first generation Americans that have that language barrier with their parents? Could that
Yeah.
potentially help them?
Yeah, what I'm finding, because it sort of relates to what I'm looking at with my PhD research, is that a lot of people feel like just disconnect obviously with their parents when they don't speak the same language. There's just like a gap, and with more literature being translated from the original language, I think there's an opportunity there to get to know a parent's culture through that. And so and so I guess in my novel, she doesn't have that. She doesn't have that ability to just like read the story, read about Korea through literature. So she's just having to experience her mother's life in a strange and weird way. That is, I don't want to get into it now, but it's.
I'm so intrigued. So I'm sorry I'm like diving into this novel.
It's I'm trying to use different like Korean folk stories and images to help tell the mother story in a new way on the page. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry.
No, like I said, I think it's like super intriguing, especially like the Korean side, right? Like a lot of military gets stationed in Korea, and like
There's a
I
lot
feel
of Koreans because in the military.
I feel like just like with your research and stuff like that, like it could just be almost eye opening, not just from like a mother daughter aspect, but also just like a military being in a different world or a different country kind of aspect.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, thank you.
So you write a lot. It seems like I know you do fiction, you do a lot of creative writing. How has writing helped you make sense of your own military service?
Oh, yeah. So I actually stayed away from writing about my military service for a long time because writing is, it's thinking, right? And so if I was going to write about my military service, that meant I was going to have to sit and think and like really think about my service. And, there were a lot of painful things that happened in my military career that, I'm still working on kind of trying to understand. First started at the Air Force Academy, and I haven't written about this, although there's some components to my fiction writing and some of my essay writing that kind of address it lightly. But, being a woman at the Air Force Academy in 2006, it wasn't the best time. And I think my experiences there really kind of put this idea in my head that I was always going to have to be on the defensive, on the defense when I enlisted. I was always kind of thinking that, my command was out to, I don't punish me, that, the guys were out there to take advantage of me or, you know, whatever, and that the girls were out there to stab me in the back. I mean, that was really the the experience that I took away from there. And I held on to that when I was enlisted. And so, it didn't help that throughout my military career, I experienced just episode after episode of sexual harassment. One pretty severe case, I think, of sexual discrimination. And I, I don't know, it was really heartbreaking because I had grown up with these stories from my dad who served in the Air Force about, just like the fraternity of the Air Force. And I wanted so badly to be a part of that. And it just felt like I couldn't be because of the way, because I was a woman. Maybe it was the way I presented myself. I don't know. But it was something about me being a woman that I just couldn't make fit into this like square box in the military. And I loved it so much that I didn't feel like it loved me very much. So anyway, I guess all of that is just to say that when I started writing about it, I realized that there was just still a lot more work for me to do. I'm still holding on to some of these ideas, and that I need to continue to, in small bites, I guess, take step forwards. Like I'm just mixing metaphors like crazy here, but I just need to continue writing about it and thinking about it and working on it. So
So I've talked to a couple other women, and trauma is one of the main topics that come up in a lot of these episodes, and how they're trying to work through some of the things that they've experienced in and out of the military. Do you feel, and some of them just felt like talk therapy was their way to go. So do you feel like creative writing or journaling is like your way of kind of working through some of those things?
yeah, I mean, yes, I actually write about my military experience mostly in creative nonfiction essays, I guess. And for me, where I feel like the healing comes from is when other people read my work and they say, "Yeah, me too." I guess that's the power of the whole Me Too movement was you're just not alone. You're being seen. And so that's really powerful for me. Yeah, that's where really like my therapy comes from. I should probably be in real therapy, but we move so much. I haven't committed to a therapist yet. But, I just want to say too that my experiences, the trauma that I've experienced as a woman in the military have like been so front and center in my like thinking of the military that while I was doing so much of my writing, I realized I hadn't even dealt with, the trauma that comes with our job.
Mm.
The work that we did was not easy, did not, wasn't, I mean, it asked a lot of us, you know, and morally, I don't know, ethically. And I am like now just now, like how many years has it been since I've gotten out of the military? But I'm just now like, wow, like writing about it and realizing that those things also really, really bother me. And those are
Mm.
also things I need to work through.
So for those who are unaware, her and I were both intel. So to kind of put it into aspect, if you will. It's, yeah, we were military. Oh, well, obviously we're military, but we were intel. And we did a lot of missions in the Middle East. And then it was also the same time Libya kicked off. I remember that was kind of a big area. So we dealt with a lot of stuff over there. And like we were young. Like we were 18, 19, 20, early 20s, and just kind of seeing some of the things that a normal 18-year-old wouldn't see. And then you can't really talk about it because, you may lose your security clearance. So I know a lot of people, especially in the Intel career field, hold a lot of these things deep down, and don't find that outlet. My outlet ended up being the gym. And then yours seems to be that creative writing. Do you publish those creative writings, or do you kind of just do it to work through some of the things that you've been dealing with?
Yeah, I publish these essays on my Substack. Like I said, I think there's like real value in sharing your words with people, whether it's in this form, a podcast, or in the written word. I think it's really important. I also really think, and just one of the reasons why I just love that you're doing this podcast, Brittany, is because I think like women's voices in particular, military women's voices really need to be heard, and not just in like an official capacity or in like any kind of formal space, but in like just conversation and in protected like space where, some dude's not gonna like butt in our conversation and tell us how we should think about what just happened. Which, yes, did that happen to you ever, Brittany, in the military? I don't know a long time how I should think and feel. Yeah, so yeah, I really appreciate this space.
Well, speaking of spaces, I also know that you created a magazine. So why don't you explain, what this magazine is and why you created it?
Sure. So I don't even remember what I was doing. I think I was like nursing my son at the time. I'm not sure. That sounds right. And I was thinking like, man, I was looking through all of these military literary journals, and there's some women in them, sure, but I felt like the overwhelming number of like published work in like the military writing world is by men. And sure, it makes sense. There's a lot more men in the military than women. But I also felt like even in that world, even with the proportions, like women were still underrepresented in this space. And so I decided I wanted to create a literary magazine for military affiliated women. And I say affiliated because I deployed with civilians who were out there all the time. And they were, women and dealing with all of the same things, that, I was dealing with out there. And actually our poetry editor, she's just like constantly deployed because she's an English teacher at deployed locations. So she's just like constantly over there teaching soldiers, English writing classes and stuff. So I felt like, I wanted to make this kind of a welcome community for any woman affiliated with the military. And I wanted it to be a space not just for writings about the military. If you look at the literary, world for, the military, a lot of the fiction writing and essay writing is about military experience. But a lot of it isn't. And one of the things that gets marketed about these writers is that they were in the military. But I just haven't seen that same kind of attention paid to women writers. So I wanted this to be a space that people could write, creative nonfiction, sure, but also poetry and fiction. Because just like me, I process a lot of like my life through fiction. I think, a lot of other people do as well. And so I just wanted that space for them.
That's awesome. When did you start this magazine, and what is it called?
Oh, sorry. Let's say the name. Okay, it's Hallaren. That's my toddler brain, Brittany. My toddler mom brain.
I get it. Mom brain. I got it. Trust me.
It's called Hallaren Literary Magazine. It's named after a woman who served in the army, And I'm like, so bad, I need to look it up. Honestly, I was like trying to find a woman to name this magazine after. When I read her bio, I was like, yeah, I think she's pretty cool. So I'm trying to figure out if I have her. I'll send it to you. But I have a short bio for it. You can add it to the notes or whatever if you want. But cool lady. She's like the face of our magazine too. Anyway, I think I was nursing my son. I think I said that. So that must have been over 2 years ago. Because this March would be like the anniversary of our first, the third anniversary of our first edition. So yeah, like maybe 2.5 years ago, I thought of this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what was like the whole process? Like how did you get people to contribute? Like how often do you publish?
All right. So we have a social media presence, and I solicit submissions through our various sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Although I'm not super active on those in those spaces, so we do a lot of word of mouth, and that's like gotten us a pretty steady trickle of submissions. And I publish. So we're not doing a print magazine this year because I am a little busy. But we do continue to publish on our online presence, which is our main magazine. And we publish periodically as I get submissions. I try to space it out. But basically what happens is, somebody who wants to submit to our magazine, they'll, fill out our little Google form, submit and we do photography as well. I accept photography. They submit their piece of photography or writing, and I look at it, see if it's a good fit for our magazine. And if it is, then, we go ahead and publish it. We do pay our writers and our photographers $3 per accepted piece. Or I should say per accepted package, because sometimes I get more than one, like a photograph or poem in a submission. But it's important to me that our writers can say that they are paid for their writing. And yeah, so then we publish it. I'll work with them a little bit before we publish it, but yeah, we try to do that pretty regularly.
That's awesome. Like why do you feel there is a need to preserve a space in like this literary community for female veteran or female military voices?
Yeah, like I said earlier that I feel like this space is just like really crowded with male voices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we carry maybe some of that reservation that we had in the service into our own like private life. I know, like, what can I say as a woman? I don't want to like rock the boat. I don't want to, rub my male colleagues the wrong way. If I say this, they're going to think that I'm just like one of those girls that's complaining because whatever. I don't know. And I just wanted a place for women to be able to write down whatever can I swear on this podcast? Whatever the fuck they want, so they could say whatever they want. And like, no one can be like, you can't say that, or you need to, stop complaining, or you need to just smile, basically. Shut up and color, right? I wanted a space where they didn't have to hear that.
I love that. So you do poetry, articles, photography. Are there any other kinds of submissions that you accept for publication?
So, I mean, honestly, it would take like any art, so long as I could like, post it.
Mm-hmm.
But we get photography, and I actually have some photography we'll be publishing pretty soon. We get a lot of poetry like that. I wouldn't call them articles so much as like creative essays, so less like fact-based and more, just, I don't know how to explain. We have some that are published now, and they're just more like kind of nonfiction, but still like stories. And we also publish fiction, and the fiction is typically short stories. I don't have the bandwidth right now to publish anyone's novel, but short stories are good, probably 20 pages or less. That would be great. But we've had some excellent, really, 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 really amazing short stories in our magazine. One of them I just think about a lot still. And yeah, I'm yeah, I'm pretty blown away by the talent in our community for sure.
Do you guys have like a community on like Facebook, or like do the writers interact with each other to create that sense of community and bonding?
That's a really good question. We don't, and that's probably because I don't have I don't really have a lot of bandwidth for social media. And unfortunately, the rest of my staff they're all like full time working in the government, whether as a civilian or active duty. And so they don't really have the bandwidth either. But they have families as well. So I think that's a really interesting question. I know that you have a community online, right? That
Nice.
is like really encouraging, and I don't know. I think what you do is amazing.
Well, thank you. I think what you do is amazing.
I just need to like sidebar and say, I don't know how you do what you do, but I'm like, I just need to know more about how you do what you do.
It's a lot of coffee and wine.
I know, but I just feel like, but you sell yourself short because there's just so much hard work that goes into being like a fitness coach, and also just like maintaining your own health and wellness. And yeah, you make it look easy. Like you make it look like, I mean, that this was
You're
what
giving
you were
me
born
too
to do.
much credit. Well, I appreciate that, but I mean, you're the one getting a freaking PhD and working for the government and advocate and following your husband.
You
Don't
have
sell
four.
Yeah, that's too many for me.
Yeah, major fangirl right now. Sorry.
Thanks, girl. I appreciate you. But I understand the whole bandwidth thing. And one thing I want to take from people, like, let people know is, it is okay to say no if it doesn't fit your bandwidth. Everyone has like these aspirations, and, I hope that you are able to create a community in the future. I know it's not in your bandwidth now, but I think like with your writers, I think that would be so amazing. And then just hearing other women's stories, um, I
Yeah,
think it would be so cool. And I know, again, like, everyone's busy, and a lot of the things that we're trying to do, especially with these women voices, we're doing it because we're passionate about it. I mean, we ain't making that much money, or if any. Like, we want to be heard. So, if anyone's listening and you feel like a community would be great, I mean, I'm sure Erikka and I could combine forces and create a safe space for women and share their voices. And
I like you said that, because one of my things that I wanted to do with Hallaren, and I'm kind of putting some of those pieces together. Right now I work at the U.S. Naval Academy, and I have some, connections here and there with some of the faculty and staff members. And I'm thinking very seriously about putting together a writing workshop for women, a virtual writing workshop. I'd love for it to be in person someday. But right now, I think it would be virtual. And I'm thinking it would probably be in the summer, sometime when school is out. So if that is something that interests anybody in your community, just be looking out for that. That is, I guess, a kind of community that maybe we could organically grow an online group from once the workshop is over. But yeah. And what my idea with this workshop is that we would get people who were hesitant to submit pieces to Hallaren into the workshop, and kind of work on their pieces, strengthen their writing, give them the confidence to go ahead and submit to us, and then we would assess it and publish it. So yeah.
honestly, I think that's a great idea. And especially like for people who, you know, don't want to submit, like they can work on kind of how you do. You're working through some of the trauma through your writing, and
Yeah.
this gives, women another outlet. Even if they don't want to submit, they can work on their writing and work through those emotions and stuff like that. And I think that it would be such a great idea, because I know journaling itself is really beneficial. Do I do it? No. Should I? Probably. But I mean, some people don't like talk therapy. I don't like talk therapy, but sometimes you have to. Well, I just don't do talk therapy. I just like to hold things in, and lift heavy weight. But this is a really good outlet. I feel like for people who do want to work through things, but don't want to rely on, talk therapy or don't like to, lift heavy things like I do.
Do you have an MBA? Because you're like completely selling me on my own magazine right now.
I do. I do have an MBA. Yes, I do.
That's awesome.
Yes, UNLV, go Rebs. But no, I think I think the workshop would be great. And, for people who are listening and you want to submit your work, submit it and, be
Yes.
proud of your service, be proud of, the work that you're doing. Like, it's not easy to be transparent, but, sometimes it's just taking that first step and just putting yourself out there. And Erikka will give you that feedback. And if you want to be better, she's like an amazing, like she's clearly a very, very well written educator. So her feedback is probably going to be extremely priceless.
I did want to share. I did want to share a poem from one of my one of the contributors to Hallaren, because what did you say? Yeah, like these voices. You never know that if your submission is going to be something that someone is like, oh, yes, this is what I needed to read today. And I can't tell you how many like messages I get from people who are like, oh, this poem that you guys just published, like this is my life. Or this is what I needed to read, or this is how I feel about, my experiences in the military. And one of the poems I wanted to read, is it okay if I read it?
Yeah, go for it.
I have permission from the poet to read it. Her name is Kate Nystrom. And let's see, we published this recently on Hallaren, so you can see it still in our social media. But yeah, this poem is called Tired Contradiction. All right. She ties her hair back, or keeps it short, or shaves it altogether. Maybe she moisturizes, maybe she doesn't. Sometimes her lipstick is flawless. Other times her eyebrows grow unruly. But her collar is neat. Her bones are capable, her mind is invaluable, her heart is persistent. She learned how to balance the impossible. A gentle touch, a firm correction. A shout, a mandate, a patient instruction. A peacemaker, a battle winner. A second chance giver, a no exceptions maker, a mentor, a fighter, a leader. Approachable but formidable, respectable but relatable, gentle but not soft, tough but not rough. Whoever she is, whoever she is tired, but can't stop. The expectations are too great, and she is too strong. A different kind of beautiful. With her, you will survive.
Oh my God, I have freaking goosebumps, and like I'm like tearing up, like because that is so powerful because it's so accurate, right? Like we balance this, intricate balance of being military or a military woman or what that means and being feminine at the same time. Wow, that's a beautiful poem.
Yeah, and I just, that could only be born out of like this community, you know what I mean? And I really feel like it hits different when you're in the community too, than somebody who might be outside of it. So yeah, if you have words you want to share, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, it doesn't have to be about your military experience. It could be about anything. But I would love to read it, and I would love a chance to publish it.
So where can people submit their works?
So if you go to hallaren.org, that's HALLAREN.org. There's like a submissions tab at the top. And you can read through our like submission criteria. It's very chill. I just have a little bit of formatting preference. And then there's a ready to submit button. You click that and it'll take you to a Google form. You got to give me your bio and your email and stuff like that. But then you can just submit your submission through that Google form. And I will get back to you sometimes. And I put this on our website. It can take a couple months before I can get back to you because we do have submissions coming in, and then we just have like a lot going on, and I don't want to rush through anybody's piece, but I will get back to you within 2 months, which is, I would say, pretty quick for the literary community. So, yeah.
So is it just you who's kind of going through these submissions, or do you have like how many people kind of help you build this magazine?
So I have a team of 4 people right now, but I am the first person. I go through the submissions, and then I have a poetry editor, and I have a photography editor, and I have somebody who helps with creative nonfiction essays. So yeah, I do have a team, and they're all great writers themselves, and all military. Actually, one of them, I don't know if I said this, but one of them is a mom, but she's also active duty JAG, married to active military Army, I think. So very much in the thick of it.
Dang, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So is that the same place where Hallaren.org, is that the same place that people could get their free issue? Are all the issues free?
Yes, all the issues are free now. When I first publish a printed version of it, I like to charge for like a certain period of time just to help recoup some of the costs of publication. And we did the first time and the second time, so that's great. And then once after that period is over, I just have the entire magazine for free. And so you can see that. You can still purchase it if you want, but there's no need to really. I really want these words to be available to anybody who wants to read them, because they're just so good.
That's awesome. So I'm going to add the link into the show notes. So if you guys are interested in reading these pieces of work, please check out the website. If you do have a creative mind or creative hand, whatever, please submit your submissions to her as well. Erikka, like I said, has a vast knowledge of writing. I mean, she's writing her own novel, for God's sakes. like, so Erikka, what if someone is listening to this podcast, what is the major thing that you want them to take away?
Ooh, yeah. I think I want a women who served to just take a chance at maybe expressing themselves in writing, which I know is hard. Like I said, it takes a lot of thinking about things maybe you don't want to think about. But I think, there's a lot of freedom in kind of exploring on the page. You don't have to write well, it doesn't have to be pretty. But I think getting your voice down there, looking at your own words, I think that's important. And then I also feel like if you want to share your words with the world, you should do that. People need to hear these stories. Even if it's just so that, they feel like they're not alone. And yeah, I think that people underestimate the need other people have for their stories. So just, I guess, don't underestimate how important your voice is.
That is completely spot on. You never know who you're going to connect with, who you're going to inspire, who you're going to motivate, or help through a certain situation or time period. So yes, ladies, please take advantage of, even if you don't share it to the world, use your ability to just write everything or type everything. I guess we're in that digital age, right? So Erikka, if people wanted to connect with you, how can people find you?
Oh, I guess the best, I have a Substack, which I can give you that information, but my writer's email is, I love getting emails from writers and from people who are like writer curious. So that you can give them my email. It's cold H2O writes, WRITES @gmail.com. It's like cold water writes. I don't know why I came up with that. It just seemed cool at the time.
I'll add it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I'm not really on social media in like a personal way, except for on Facebook, but that's just, for people like Brittany. So,
I'm special.
yeah, or you can message me on any of the Hallaren social media sites. I can also reach out to you there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Erikka, for taking the time to share your story, share, your passion project, for sharing female military voices in literary form. If anyone has any questions, please reach out. Consider submitting a submission. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me or her. Until next week, we will talk to you soon.